How we doing, everybody? Listen, last week, UFC 276, we saw an absolute masterclass of a performance from Alexander Volkanovski, where he certainly lived up to the nickname The Great when he shut out Max Holloway for not one, not two, but three times. The third time. The third time he did it in style. The third time he left no doubt. Listen, the first couple of fights, we know there was talk, there was kickback, there was people saying that Holloway was robbed. It's over now. Forget about it. Those first two fights weren't robberies. They were very close fights. But the third one, it was a domination. It was one-sided. It was 5 rounds of Alexander Volkanovski showing the dominance that he has, the brilliance that he has, and basically just showing that he's a superior fighter. Okay, so he's without doubt the champion at featherweight. He's the greatest featherweight of all time. Of course, that did originally belong to Jose Aldo, the king of Rio. Then along came Conor McGregor, but he never defended the belt. Then it was Max Holloway, and now, of course, it's the era of Alexander Volkanovski. So, now he's the champ. Now that's in the rearview mirror. Now that the dust has settled, everybody's talking about who is the pound-for-pound '1 fighter on the planet. And a lot of people are pointing at the guy in question. The guy that I'm talking about, Alexander Volkanovski. Now, when you look at his record's incredible. 25-1, 12 knockouts, 3 submissions, and only 1 loss. A very, very long time ago. Now, of course, when you think about pound for pound, the usual names, the usual suspects come up. We're talking Volkanovski, of course, Oliveira, Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, and of course, this list would not be complete if we weren't talking about the great John Bones Jones. Of course, John Jones, he's back in action later this year. And I think with the body of work that John Jones had, it's crazy that we're even discussing Volkanovski being the best. The way John Jones beat everybody was unbelievable. It was sheer dominance like we've never ever seen. However, this sport is what have you done for me lately? You're only as good as your last fight. John Jones' last few fights at light heavyweight, certainly the last 2 against Reyes and Thiago Santos, they weren't the most impressive. In fact, some people even suspected that John Jones lost those fights. So, what have you done for me lately? You're only as good as your last fights. With that said, who do I think is the pound-for-pound #1? Well, I think a clear contender for Volkanovski in this discussion is the person that Volkanovski should fight next. Of course, I'm talking about Charles Oliveira. He's all but cleared out the featherweight division. Yes, there is Josh Emmett. Yes, there is Yair Rodriguez. But if the champ Volkanovski wants to go up to 155, jump the line and get a shot at Oliveira, Dana White said he has more than deserved it. And I feel like he should do that. He has nothing to lose. He has greatness to achieve and literally nothing to lose. Now, Oliveira, in my opinion, is the champion in the toughest division, and also he's the most exciting fighter in the UFC. But pound for pound is about skill. It's about taking a guy that's a heavyweight or a featherweight or a flyweight and just comparing the skills. It's not who gets the job done. It's not who's got the most knockout power. It's about who's got the best skills. And listen, Oliveira's skills are sensational, right? There's a reason why he has the most submissions in the history of the UFC. There's a reason why he's catching up with the knockouts as well. The man's incredible. But part of the reason he's so exciting is that he often gets dropped. His last few fights, he's been dropped in every single one of them. While that makes for an exciting fight, I think it drops you down on the pound-for-pound list. Great fighter, one of the best, incredible record, breaking records all over the place, but also getting dropped. I think that hurts you in the pound-for-pound discussion. Israel Adesanya is another one as well. Obviously undefeated, other than when he went up to light heavyweight against Blachowicz. Other than that, the man's putting on great performances. Yes, I may have been a little bit critical, but that's only because maybe we expect too much of Israel Adesanya, okay? So what am I doing? What am I talking about? First of all, Oliveira needs to be the next fight, in my humble opinion, for Alexander Volkanovski, okay? That allows him to firmly establish himself, Volkanovski, as the pound-for-pound #1. Right now, that title does belong to Kamaru Usman. Now, let's take a look at some of the records. So if you go to Kamaru Usman record, which again, phenomenal record. These top 3, Izzy, Volkanovski, Kamaru, all with only 1 loss on their record. Kamaru's 21 matches, 20 wins, 1 loss, 9 knockouts, 1 sub. But let's look at the competition. Last beat Colby Covington, knocked out Jorge Masvidal, TKO'd Gilbert Burns, decision over Masvidal, TKO over Colby Covington, and then a decision over Tyrone Woodley. Before that, Dos Anjos, Damian Maia, Emil, Weber, Meek. It starts to go a little bit, you know, the name value. Oh, there's a Sean Strickland in there as well. So that's top competition. Dos Anjos, Woodley, Covington. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 elite competition. Then when we look at Volkanovski, Max Holloway, Korean Zombie, Brian Ortega, 3, Max Holloway again, Jose Aldo, and we'll throw Chad Mendes in. Chad Mini Mendes, we'll throw him in as an elite competition, even though he's not fucking elite, right? So we'll throw him in there as well. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Same thing, 7 fights, 7 elite things, 7 elite competitions. It's all subjective. It's all in the mind's eye. Who is the best? Who do you think? Your list is probably different from my list, okay? Kamaru Usman on the UFC rankings is the pound for pound number 1. I think Volkanovski potentially pips him to the post. Why? Because this sport is about what have you done for me lately. Last time out against Colby Covington, Colby was doing okay. He made it kind of competitive. That one there against Max Holloway, that was an absolute masterclass. That was a shutout. That was dominance. So therefore, I think that just puts him a little bit above, okay? And that's not an insult to Kamaru. We're splitting hairs over who is the best pound for pound fighter on the planet. To say that you're even in the top 5 is not an insult. That is a great compliment. The top 5 are Kamaru, Volkanovski, Izzy, John Jones, and Charles Oliveira. Not necessarily in that order, but pound for pound. Where did this start? How did we even get here? Why are we having this discussion? Well, it all started with boxing in the 1930s. A Hollywood management team behind a great smaller fighter called Henry Armstrong recognized that in the Great Depression era, in America, they needed a great marketing gimmick. So they came up with a new concept to market Armstrong. They said that he was the best fighter in the world, which had never been said before of anyone who wasn't the heavyweight champ. Yes, Joe Louis would win in a fight between the two of them, but only because of his greater size. If height and weight were somehow equal, Henry Armstrong's skills were greater than Joe Louis's. As I said, this was a concept never heard of before, but by the time the iconic Sugar Ray Robinson came along a decade later, sports writer Jimmy Cannon had come up with a name for this concept, which was, as we know now, pound for pound. And he is why Volkanovski reminds me of the original pound for pounder. Armstrong was the featherweight champ who moved up in weight to become the lightweight champ at the same time. Armstrong actually won the lightweight and the welterweight world titles. That'd be 5 divisions, all unified if repeated today. So, for what was basically a marketing gimmick for one fighter, 90 years ago, fans, promoters and fighters have come to really care about who is a pound for pound number 1. Not just in boxing for the last few decades, but in mixed martial arts as well. I mean, after all, we're talking about a guy in John Jones that has reigned dominance through generations of fighters, but still, he will go to Twitter to argue with anyone that he's still the pound for pound number 1. Because he cares, and it's something that he holds dear to his heart. And yesterday we even had Conor McGregor, who was considered the best fighter in the world by some during his double champ heyday. He was clapping back at Alexander Volkanovski's claims to being the best fighter in the world in any weight division. That's what pound for pound means at the end of the day. So there it is. Pound for pound started off as a marketing gimmick way back in the 1930s, but just a marketing gimmick. But the fighters, the elite fighters, the best fighters on the goddamn planet, they all care about it so much. They're arguing over it. They're going to Twitter. They're talking shit on social media. So if they care, then we certainly care. But there it is. Pound for pound number 1. Who you got? Thank you very much for watching. Ring the bell, subscribe, all that good stuff.